The void between galaxies shuddered as if in pain. A rift tore open in the fabric of eternity, its edges alive with warp fire, shrieking with the chorus of dead stars. From that wound drifted an obsidian vessel of impossible scale, its surface like the skin of a god machine, gleaming with scars of ancient wars. It was the Executor, a relic from another universe, displaced by the whims of forces beyond mortal comprehension. Within its hollow corridors, silence reigned, broken only by the slow, mechanical rhythm of breathing. Darth Vader stood at the viewport, hands clasped behind his back, staring into the storm that had swallowed his fleet. His mind reached into the chaos, seeking the familiar pulse of the Force, but what he felt was something else entirely. This was not the Force he knew. It was vast, monstrous, alive with whispers. The Imperium breathed against his thoughts, clawing for entry like a beast denied prey. The ship's instruments screamed. Warp static flooded the consoles as servitors malfunctioned, their augmetic eyes bursting with sparks. The star charts twisted, coordinates lost to madness. Outside, a blood-red sun rose over a world encased in metal and ruin. Its light struck the Executor's hull like judgment. Vader's voice cut through the chaos, cold, absolute, a set course for the nearest habitable world. The officers obeyed without question. Fear was their devotion, and he their dark messiah. As the ship descended through the choking smog of Terra's upper atmosphere, lightning crackled across its hull. The machine spirit of the world recognized an intruder not born of this reality. The Mechanicum sensors on Mars flared to life, detecting the impossible energy signature, a vessel that defied the Imperium's ancient understanding. In the orbiting bastions of the Imperial Navy, alarms wailed. Commanders barked orders through Vox networks, voices trembling with awe and terror. The black ships of the Inquisition began their approach, flanked by battlecruisers bearing the sigils of the Aquila. From the upper hives of Terra to the catacombs beneath the palace, all felt the disturbance. Even the dormant soul upon the golden throne shuddered, faint ripples of psychic static flickering through the Astronomicene's dying light. Vader descended alone, his shuttle cut through the smog like a falling blade, its engines roaring against the dying winds. When it struck the surface, the ground itself recoiled. Ash and debris spiraled upward, framing the Dark Lord in a storm of ruin. Around him stretched a wasteland of sanctified ruin, colossal statues of the Emperor, eroded by millennia, their marble faces streaked with the blood of sacrifice. The air smelled of incense, oil, and decay. A column of crimson-robed Tick priests emerged from the haze. Servo skulls hovered around them, chanting in binary hymns. Their leader, a Magos Dominus with half his skull replaced by iron, fell to his knees. "Vermnisaya, you have returned," he whispered, voice trembling through a Vox grill. Vader's gaze swept over them. "I am no god," he said, his voice resonant, distorted, carrying through the smog like prophecy. The Magos shuddered, mistaking the denial for divine humility. His followers prostrated themselves, reciting ancient canticles of reverence. To them, this figure of black metal and breathless power was the manifestation of every prophecy, half flesh, half machine, bearing dominion over both. The machine god reborn. Vader's mind brushed their thoughts and recoiled at their fanaticism. They were slaves worshipping circuitry they could not understand. He turned away from them, the cape of black Durastal fiber trailing through the ash. Above, the sky groaned. Thunder rolled like the breath of titans. He felt it then, the faintest flicker across the horizon. Not of the Force, but something older, colder, heavier. A presence vast as eternity, neither alive nor dead. The Force within him rippled, strained beneath the weight of that unseen gaze. Somewhere in the labyrinth of cathedrals and golden tombs, something watched. A voice broke the wind. A mortal soldier in carapace armor, his lasgun shaking in trembling hands. "By the throne, identify yourself." Vader turned his masked gaze toward the man. The soldier's knees buckled as the air grew heavy, sound collapsing into silence. The Dark Lord lifted one hand, fingers closing slowly. The trooper convulsed, gasping, his weapon falling from numb hands. When he crumpled to the ground, the others dared not move. "Take me to your Emperor," Vader commanded. The Magos hesitated, servos whining in confusion. The Emperor, he sits upon the golden throne. His flesh is dust, yet his will sustains mankind. "Then he lives," Vader said. "In a manner of speaking," the priest replied. "He guides us through the Astronomicon, through his divine light." Vader's respirator drew a single slow breath. The sound seemed to fill the world. "Then I will see him." The Mechanicus retinue, bound by faith and awe, obeyed. and awe obeyed. Words spread across the data streams like a contagion. The machine god had returned. On Mars, forge fires flared brighter than they had in centuries. Across Terra, the ecclesiarchy wailed in confusion, their prayers unanswered as the Astronomicon flickered once more. And far above, in the warp's unseen depths, the chaos gods turned their gaze toward the new arrival. Something alien had entered their domain, something shaped not by faith but by iron will. The Imperium trembled, whispering a single name that echoed through the minds of demons and saints alike. Vader. In the Emperor's silent tomb, unseen eyes stirred. Dust drifted from the ceiling like ash as psychic energy coiled through the air. The corpse upon the golden throne twitched just once. Somewhere deep within the darkness of Terra, the whisper of a machine breath met the dying sigh of a god. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath, awaiting the meeting of the two dark suns that would decide the fate of all mankind. The light of the Astronomicon wavered. Across the galaxy, astropaths screamed as psychic turbulence tore through the Imperium, blinding entire sectors in an instant. Fleets adrift in the void found their navigators struck mute or dead, their eyes bleeding black as the sacred beacon faltered. Even the distant fortress worlds of Ultramar felt the tremor. The Emperor's divine signal, the single thread binding humanity against the dark, flickered like a dying flame. On Terra, the High Lords convened within the marble vaults of the Senatorum Imperialis. The air reeked of incense and fear. Vox transmissions filled the chamber, reports of madness, worlds in uproar, faith shaken to its core. At the far end of the table sat Lord Commander Guilliman's empty chair, cold and silent beneath the watchful eyes of saints carved into the walls. The Adeptus Astra Telepathica reported a singular anomaly. A psychic shadow had entered the Sol system vast enough to eclipse even the Astronomicon itself. The inquisitorial representative, robed in sable, leaned forward. Would a new warp storm? No, said the Primaris astropath, her eyes white and burning with warp fire. Not a storm, a will. The chamber fell into silence. The Adeptus Mechanicus envoy, a steel-faced magos from Mars, spoke in clipped binaric tones, translating as he did. The Omnissiah has descended. Waon, a being of machine and soul. The forge worlds tremble in reverence. A blasphemy, spat the ecclesiarch, slamming a jeweled fist upon the table. There is only one God in this galaxy, and he sits upon the throne. The magos turned his gaze toward the cardinal. Then why does his light fade? Su, then why does his light fade? No one answered. Beneath the palace, deep within the ancient catacombs, Darth Vader advanced through the labyrinth of relics and tombs. Servo skulls flitted ahead, lighting his path in flickering golden halos. Statues of long-dead heroes loomed from the darkness. Primarchs and saints cast in stone, their faces eroded by time and devotion. The air was thick with incense and the scent of sanctified oil. Each breath echoed against the metal of his mask, a slow rhythm against the silence. He felt the force, muted, twisted, consumed by this world's ancient rot. But beneath that corruption, there pulsed a power he recognized, faint yet infinite. It was the presence he had felt since his arrival. The Emperor. The Mechanicus escort moved in reverent formation behind him, chanting prayers to machine spirits that hummed through their augmetics. Vader ignored them. His steps carried the weight of destiny. The shadows seemed to bow as he passed. They reached the first of the inner sanctums, an antechamber lined with frescoes depicting the Great Crusade. Angels of gold and flame marched beside mortal armies, their banners drenched in blood. Vader studied the art in silence. To his eyes it was not divinity depicted there, but conquest. The Emperor had not built an empire of faith. He had forged a machine of war. A memory stirred, his own crusades across the stars of his lost galaxy, the cries of rebellion, the burning of worlds. The symmetry was undeniable. Yet where the Emperor ruled from death, Vader still walked within the cage of life, sustained by rage and machinery. The magos approached the seal gate ahead, bowing. Bowing. Beyond this point lies the Sanctum Imperialis. Few who enter return unchanged. Vader's reply was a single word. Open it. The gate obeyed. Massive pistons groaned as the adamantium doors split apart, revealing the corridor beyond. Inside, the air grew colder, vibrating with psychic residue. Every wall bore the weight of worship. Gold, bone, and scripture encrusted every surface. Candles burned in the thousands, their wax pooling like rivers of tears. As they advanced, the whispering began, not sound but thought, echoes of countless voices, ancient and broken. Some cried for salvation, Others cursed eternity. Vader's mind pierced through the noise, steady and unyielding. He had walked through the minds of the dying before. This was different. The very air wept with devotion. At the heart of the corridor, they found the custards. Golden giants stood like living statues, their halberds lowered, eyes locked upon the intruder. For the first time since crossing into this universe, Vader sensed something akin to respect. They were not afraid. They were measuring him. "None may approach the throne unbidden," said the captain, his voice cold as iron. "I seek audience," Vader replied. "Your request is denied," replied. "Your request is denied." The words hung in the air. Vader tilted his head slightly, studying the warrior before him. You mistake command for request. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then the force erupted, an invisible storm tearing through the hall. Candles shattered, marble cracked. The custards staggered, but did not fall. The captain drove his spear into the ground, channeling a psychic shield that rippled with golden light. The clash between the two powers sent shockwaves through the chamber. In the depths of the warp, the echo of their confrontation rippled outward. Demons turned their gaze toward Terra. The Astronomicon flared, flickered, then dimmed once more. Across the galaxy, 1,000 worlds lost their way. Vader withdrew his hand. The custard's armor smoked, but he still stood, breath steady, eyes burning with resolve. "If you seek to reach the Emperor," the Guardian said, "you must walk the path of judgment." Vader regarded him in silence. Then he turned away, cloak sweeping through the ashes of extinguished candles. "Then lead me to judgment." As they descended deeper into the sanctum, the air itself seemed to recoil. The light of the Astronomicon pulsed weakly above the world, flickering like a dying heart. On every world, pilgrims fell to their knees, praying for a sign. None came. In the silent void beyond Terra, the Chaos Gods laughed softly, for they knew what the mortals did not. The shadow that had come to the Golden Throne was not there to worship. It had come to claim it. The descent into Mars was not through the warp, but through reverence. The red planet glowed beneath the shadow of the Executor, its surface veined with molten rivers and crowned by cathedrals of iron. Every forge world within the Sol system felt the pull of the anomaly, a vessel beyond known design, breathing with an aura that resonated with the machine spirits themselves. As Darth Vader's shuttle cut through the storm of ash and static, the Magos Dominus who guided it whispered binary prayers, unsure if they were meant for the Omnissiah or the thing that now walked beside him. The hangar that received them was not of steel, but of faith made manifest. Towers of brass and gold rose like pillars of devotion, every cog and servo blade engraved with scripture. When the shuttle's ramp descended, an entire conclave of tech priests fell to their knees as one, their voices merging in mechanical chorus. Deus Mechanicus Redemptor Ferrum Dominus Vitae. Vader stepped forward, his form wreathed in steam. The rasp of his respirator filled the silence that followed, each exhale like the rhythm of a heart forged in iron. Around him, the Martian atmosphere stank of oil, ozone, and burning incense. Thousands watched from balconies, their augmetic eyes reflecting his silhouette like a god's shadow upon their metal. From the depths of the forges came the Fabricator General, his body a mountain of pistons, cables, and holy machinery. His human features had long been surrendered. His voice issued from a dozen vox throats, reverberating like distant thunder. "Long have we awaited the return of the true Omnissiah," he said. "Your coming was prophesied in the scrap code of the ancients, the binary psalms of Stygia Prime. You are the bridge between flesh and machine." "I am no bridge," Vader replied. His voice cut through the air with the weight of command. "I am the master of both." The Fabricator General bowed deeply, his vast mechanical limbs folding in submission. "Then you are he, the machine god made manifest." Vader's mind probed the crowd. Their faith was not the blind hysteria of the ecclesiarchy, it was mathematical, logical, absolute. To them, the divine was circuitry perfected. He saw in their reverence both potential and danger. Faith was a weapon. In this place it was a forge yet untouched. He extended a gloved hand, summoning from his belt the hilt of his weapon. With a hiss, the crimson blade ignited, its glow casting long shadows upon the rusted walls. Gasps rippled through the assembly. "Behold," the Fabricator General whispered, "the flame of the Omnissiah." "Oh, this weapon is not holy," Vader said. "It is purpose-given form. Power is not divine and is earned through mastery." He deactivated the blade, and the sound of its extinguishing was like a curtain falling upon an age of superstition. But where he sought to dispel faith, he only deepened it. The tech priest recorded every word, every breath, their internal cogitators burning with sacred data. In Vader's rejection of godhood, they found confirmation. To deny divinity was the act of a god unwilling to claim his throne. They led him through the cathedrals of Mars, where colossal titans slept beneath sheets of metal cloth, their machine spirits whispering in dreamless code. Skitarii legions knelt as he passed, their red cloaks folding like blood across the floor. Vader could feel their devotion, as tangible as heat. He could also feel the machinery, the pulse of reactors, the hum of servitors, the life force of a planet enslaved to production. This world, he said as they walked, is enslaved to itself. The fabricator's lends his word. Enslaved? No. Perfected. Each component serves the whole. Or yet none rule, Vader replied. But not even you. They entered the central forge, an abyssal chamber where molten metal flowed through conduits like blood. Suspended above it was the heart of Mars. The Noctis engine, a relic of impossible age and power. The Fabricator General gestured to it reverently. This is the soul of Mars, the core of our devotion. It sustains us. Vader approached the machine, the heat rippling against his armor. He extended his senses. What he felt was not spirit, but resonance, a power neither force nor warp. It pulsed with rhythm, faint but familiar, like the beating of a long-dead heart. He placed his hand upon the metal surface. The reaction was immediate. Every light in the forge dimmed. Sparks erupted from conduits as the machine's song changed pitch, harmonizing with the deep pulse of his mechanical life support. Data streams scrambled, servo skulls fell dead from the air. The tech priests cried out in terror and worship. Vader's voice cut through the chaos. It listens. The Fabricator General's vox emitted a sound halfway between a scream and a prayer. He communes with the core. The Omnissiah speaks to the great machine. Vader withdrew his hand. The forge fell silent once more, but something had changed. The Noctis engine still thrummed, now attuned to a new frequency, his. You reawakened it, the Fabricator whispered. What would you have of us, Lord of Iron? Vader regarded him with unreadable calm. We'll have obedience. You will build for me vessels capable of traversing this galaxy. And you will prepare your armies for war. For whom do we march? For no one, Vader said. We march to end gods. The Fabricator fell prostrate, his voice trembling with binary praise. By your will the forges shall burn brighter than suns. Vader turned toward the storm outside, the red dust swirling like blood. His gaze pierced the horizon toward distant Terra, where the golden throne still pulsed faintly in the warp. The path was clear now. The Emperor waited, and between them lay the ruin of belief itself. As the Mechanicus began their fevered work, the first transmissions spread through the Martian network. Across the forges of Lucius, Risa, and Graia, the message repeated endlessly in sacred code. The Omnissiah has returned. The age of flesh ends. And somewhere deep within the warp, where laughter and screams were one, the gods of chaos stirred again, amused, curious, and afraid. The fires of Mars burned for 9 nights without dimming. Every forge, every reactor, every Titan cradle roared to life in synchronized devotion. Under the command of Darth Vader, the Mechanicus had transformed its worship into war. New patterns of production spread like contagion, logic rites rewritten, sacred algorithms altered. The Fabricator General himself decreed the dawn of a new order, one guided not by prayer, but by obedience. Yet across the Imperium, the ripples became tremors. On Terra, the ecclesiarchy awoke to the scent of blasphemy. From the high spires of the Cathedral of St. Drusus, the voice of Cardinal Voran thundered across the Vox networks, calling the faithful to arms. Beware the shadow of false divinity. A metal beast walks among men, proclaiming dominion over the Emperor's realm. He defiles our shrines, mocks our relics. He is the great deceiver in iron. Across the lower hives, pilgrims wept and flagellated themselves before images of the Emperor, begging forgiveness for their doubt. Some whispered that perhaps the machine god and the Emperor were one, and that the shadowed figure from the stars had come to reunite them. Others spoke of apocalypse. Vader ignored their noise. Within the vaults of Mars, he stood before an army of machines reborn. Skitarii legions gleamed with new alloy, their logic cores infused with designs no human mind had conceived. Titans awakened from centuries of silence, their weapon systems reconfigured through patterns whispered by the Dark Lord himself. Even the Fabricator General, though bound by faith, felt unease at the efficiency of this new order. There was no need for rituals, no need for blessings or chants. The machines obeyed without devotion. When he questioned it, Vader's reply was cold and absolute. A faith is a chain. Remove it, and progress follows. But progress bred fear. The Inquisition arrived in secret. 3 agents of the Ordo Hereticus descended upon Mars under false ident codes, guided by a singular mandate: confirm the heresy and, if true, purge it. Among them was Inquisitor Katerine Greyfax, her armor gleaming black beneath the crimson light of the forges. She had seen worlds consumed by false prophets and Xenos deceivers. Yet none had ever spread so swiftly as this one. They found the Magos in his sanctum, surrounded by binary choirs. 4. Greyfax's presence silenced the room. Her voice was sharp, unyielding. You claim this being to be the Omnissiah. Do you comprehend what that word means? The Magos bowed, though his voice carried the confidence of revelation. It means salvation. The flesh shall yield to the perfect form. The Omnissiah commands it. Then you serve a heretic. The Magos' mechanical eyes clicked. We serve the future. Her hand went to her bolt pistol, but the door opened before she could speak. The chamber fell silent. Vader entered. His presence was a storm contained in flesh and iron. The red light from the forge glimmered across his armor, casting reflections like molten blood. The Inquisitors turned as one, their psychowards flaring in instinctive defense. Greyfax met his gaze without trembling. You desecrate the Emperor's domain, she said. You twist the Mechanicus into worshipping a false idol. Vader's mechanical breathing filled the silence between them. Your Emperor is a corpse chained to a machine. I am no false god. I am what he wished to become. Greyfax's eyes hardened. A blasphemy. Vader stepped closer. A truth. With a motion too swift for the eye, she drew her weapon. The bolt round exploded harmlessly against an unseen barrier. Vader's hand rose, invisible power seizing her in the air. Her armor groaned as the force constricted around her throat. You mistake devotion for strength, he said. But faith cannot stop what is inevitable. Her companions fired. The bolts ricocheted, their weapons torn from their hands and twisted into scrap. Vader released Greyfax. She fell to her knees, coughing, eyes blazing with hatred and terror. Go, he said. Futo, he said. Tell your priests and inquisitors. The time of worship ends. The age of flesh dies. They fled, their retreat echoing through the data channels of the Inquisition before the day was out. By dawn, the news reached Terra. The High Lords erupted in outrage, demanding immediate sanction. The Ecclesiarchy declared a new crusade, the redemption of Mars. Fleets began to mobilize, banners of gold and crimson raised high. But before the first ship could leave orbit, the Astronomicon dimmed again. Psychers screamed in their cells, their minds filled with a vision of a burning star, black at its heart, red at its edges. The Emperor's light faltered as if cowed. On Mars, Vader watched the stars through the forged temple's glass dome. Lightning crawled across the sky, forming patterns only he could feel. The Force and the warp swirled together, indistinguishable now, merging into a single storm. He turned to the Fabricator General. They will come. They will come. They will die, the Fabricator answered. Vader's respirator echoed once, slow and steady. No, they will see. In the silence that followed, the sound of machinery replaced prayer. Vast fleets began construction under his command. Dreadnoughts older than memory were reforged with alien precision. The red planet glowed brighter each night, a second sun rising in defiance of the throne. And across the warp, where gods whispered and fates were forged, Khorne stirred from his throne of skulls, tasting the scent of a new war. The heresy had begun not of faith against faith, but of machine against God. The warp had no shape, no time, no mercy. It was a sea of thought made flesh, where emotion became matter and memory devoured itself. And yet even in its madness, something new stirred. Across the shifting tides of the Immaterium, 4 great powers turned their endless gaze toward the disturbance that had entered their domain. A will not born of the warp, but of something colder, sharper, disciplined. It was alien and familiar all at once. It was control forged through pain. Khorne was the first to notice. Upon his throne of brass and skulls, he felt the resonance of endless war in the rhythm of Vader's breath. Rage wrapped in armor, hate given order. The blood god bellowed laughter that cracked the bones of demons, his voice rolling through eternity. Lay mortal who kills without worship, who bleeds without prayer. I will see his skull upon my throne. In the gardens of despair, Slaanesh listened to that same rhythm. The mechanical rasp of suffering sustained, the symphony of agony turned to discipline. The Dark Prince smiled, for such torment was divine. He does not seek pleasure, Slaanesh whispered, yet his pain sings. I will teach him to love it. From the ever-shifting maelstrom of Tizanchi's domain, 1,000 eyes opened in unison. The architect of fate peered into the skein of time and saw the black-armored figure standing before the golden throne. He saw destinies folding and unmaking themselves around that event like wings of glass. A deep, gleeful cackle escaped the god's beak-like visage. Bvists, a thread that resists the weave. Let us see if it snaps or rewrites the tapestry. And in the rotting depths of Nurgle's garden, the Lord of Decay stirred sluggishly, releasing a cloud of joyous spores into the air. How sad he is, how empty. He seeks order to deny entropy, yet all things end, all flesh rots, all machines rust. Come, my little one, and let me show you the peace of decay. Their attentions converged, and the warp screamed with delight. They had seen countless champions rise and fall, primarchs, demigods, prophets, but this one was different. He did not serve chaos, nor did he seek to destroy it. He existed beyond their understanding. His power was not faith, not desire, not madness. It was control. And that control, to them, was heresy. In the material realm, the warp storms around Mars intensified. Crimson lightning split the skies and demons began to manifest in the outskirts of the forges. The Scaterae fought them in mechanical silence, their augmetic limbs cutting through incorporeal flesh with energy blades humming to new harmonic codes. For every demon slain, another clawed its way from the rift. The boundary between reality and nightmare thinned. Vader stood at the heart of the storm, the force swirling around him like a hurricane. The air burned with psychic pressure, but his will was immovable. The demons that emerged hesitated, creatures of chaos confronted by something that mirrored their hunger but refused its madness. One lunged, a thing of molten blood and teeth roaring in Khorne's name. Vader raised his hand. The creature froze mid-leap. His invisible grip tightened. The demon's body convulsed, imploding into black vapor before vanishing completely. The remaining entities shrieked and recoiled, their forms flickering as they sensed what had just happened. Something in him had denied their essence. To unmake a being of the warp without faith, sorcery, or blessing was an impossibility. Yet it had happened. The Fabricator General watched from behind a veil of sanctified glass, his mechanical limbs trembling with awe. He bends the immaterial as if it were data, he whispered. Ooh! He commands the unreal. Vader's mind reached into the warp's roiling madness. He felt its depth, endless and malignant, and through it he heard whispers. They came from everywhere and nowhere, voices layered atop one another, the sound of eternity weeping and laughing. One voice rose above the rest, resonant and mocking, a chorus of four made one. You are not of this place, Lord of Ashes. Vader's breath steadied. I am of all places. You are nothing here, the voice hissed. Your power is an echo. Your will is a spark in the storm. You believe you control your rage, but rage controls you. You are ours, whether you know it or not. I serve no gods, Vader said. Laughter answered him, a sound that tore through reality. All serve in the end. He ignited his lightsaber, crimson reflecting in the molten haze. Then I will end what you are. The world split. For a heartbeat, Vader stood in two realities, the Forge and the Warp. Before him rose visions of the Four, Khorne's throne of bone, Tizanchi's labyrinth of eyes, Slaanesh's palace of glass, Nurgle's garden of filth. They surrounded him, vast as suns. The force roared within him, meeting their madness in defiance. Khorne swung his axe, and the blow shattered galaxies. Foch. Vader caught it upon his blade, sparks of impossible fire dancing between them. Slaanesh reached for his mask, whispering temptations of lost love and mortal warmth. He did not flinch. Nurgle's hand closed over him, and his armor corroded, hissing with decay. Still he endured. Only Tizanch laughed, the sound twisting through Vader's mind like a serpent. You think you resist us? The god murmured. But even now, your presence changes the warp. You bring logic where there should be madness. You are the seed of a new order. You are not our enemy. You are our enemy. You are our evolution. The warp convulsed. The gods vanished, their laughter fading into the endless void. Vader collapsed to one knee, smoke rising from his armor. His systems flickered, warning lights flashing crimson. The force within him burned brighter than ever, reshaped by what it had touched. The storm over Mars subsided. The demons were gone, drawn back into the depths. But every psyker in the Imperium woke screaming that night, haunted by the same image. A black figure standing over a dying god of gold, his breath echoing through eternity. On Terra, deep within the vaults of the palace, the Emperor stirred once more upon his throne. The Astronomicon flared, then dimmed, then burned with a new light, cold, precise and merciless. In that moment, the warp remembered the name Vader, and the galaxy began to forget the meaning of faith. The fires of Mars had cooled to embers when Vader departed. His fleet, newly forged and baptized in stormlight, tore through the void toward Terra. The journey was silent save for the hum of engines that seemed to breathe with him, each pulse synchronized to his will. Behind the blackened viewport, the cradle of mankind awaited, shrouded in the golden haze of its dying light. He did not come as conqueror nor savior, but as reckoner. The presence he had felt since his arrival drew him closer, calling from the core of the world like a voice trapped between life and eternity. Terra unfolded beneath the Executor's shadow, a world suffocating under the weight of its own devotion. The sky was grey, choked by incense smoke and exhaust from the endless spires that clawed upward like the fingers of the damned. Oceans of pilgrims covered the ground, their chants rising as thunder, hymns to a god who had long since ceased to answer. And in the heart of it all loomed the Imperial Palace, a continent of stone and gold, its towers lost among the clouds, its base buried in the dust of 1,000,000 years of faith. As the fleet entered orbit, defense platforms locked their guns upon the intruder. 1,000 warnings screamed across the Vox, demanding identification. Vader gave none. In the control chambers of the void stations, operators froze as the vast shadow eclipsed the sun. Then, without a single command, the platforms went dark, systems overridden by a code they did not recognize. Doors sealed. Servitors collapsed. The lights died. Silence spread like contagion. In the palace, the alarms rose seconds later. Custards took their stations, golden giants marching in unison. The chamber of the High Lords erupted in fury. Reports flooded in. Mars had gone silent. The Mechanicus refused communion, and now a black fleet stood above Terra, unchallenged. None yet dared to speak the name whispered in astropathic dread. The Dark Lord, beneath the golden towers Vader descended. His shuttle landed upon the ancient causeway that led to the Sanctum Imperialis, its stones worn smooth by 10,000 years of worship. He emerged into the lightless dawn, cape trailing behind him, flanked by a detachment of Mechanicus honor guards. The ground quaked beneath their synchronized march. At the gates of the sanctum, an army awaited him, Adeptus Custards in formation, their halberds crossed, their armor gleaming with divine radiance. Behind them knelt the Sisters of Silence, their faces veiled, their very presence a wound in the warp. Vader felt their null auras like knives against his mind, but he did not falter. Captain General Trajan Valoris stepped forward, his expression a mask of restrained fury. "You trespass upon the throne of the Emperor," he said. "Kneel or be unmade." Vader's breath filled the silence that followed, a cold rhythm against the heat of their anger. "I seek only truth," he replied. "Your Emperor calls to me from within his prison." "But there is no prison," Valoris said. "There is only duty. His sacrifice sustains the galaxy." Vader's helmet tilted slightly. "The sacrifice is meaningless when it breeds only decay. Kneel before a corpse." The Custards surged forward, but Valoris raised his hand. His voice softened, weighted with warning rather than rage. "You know not what you speak. His power holds back the endless storm. Without him all would burn." Vader's voice was low, almost human. "I have seen the storm. I have walked through it and returned. He is not holding it back. He is bound to it." Valoris's eyes narrowed. "How could you know this?" Vader raised his hand toward the heavens. The Force, silent for long moments under the Sisters' suppression, answered his will in a single devastating surge. The air twisted, light bending around him as invisible pressure cracked the marble beneath his feet. The Null Maidens staggered, their will faltering. Valoris's golden cloak whipped in the unseen wind. "I know," Vader said, "because I have heard it." A silence fell so heavy it seemed to still the world. Even the Custards hesitated, their confidence shaken. Valoris stepped forward slowly, his spear lowering to the ground. "If you speak truth," he said, "then prove it. Enter the sanctum. Stand before him and see what remains of your faith." Vader regarded him for a long moment, then deactivated his saber and clipped it to his belt. "So be it." The Custards parted. The great doors of the Sanctum Imperialis groaned open, revealing a darkness that swallowed all light. The air that flowed from within was ancient, heavy with the scent of incense, blood, and dust. Vader crossed the threshold, his steps echoing through the endless hall. The doors closed behind him with a sound like the sealing of a tomb. Inside, the walls were covered in relics, the bones of saints, fragments of banners, the frozen remains of heroes whose names had long since faded. The silence was absolute. Only the faint hum of machines broke it, the sound of the throne's eternal vigil. He descended the grand stair, his senses stretching outward through the gloom. Then he felt it, faint but undeniable. A pulse, a presence that filled the space like the echo of creation itself. The force within him shuddered under its weight. His breathing grew slower, heavier. Every step forward felt as though he were wading through centuries of devotion, pain, and sacrifice. At the heart of the sanctum, light broke through the shadows, a column of gold and fire, eternal and motionless. Within it sat the Emperor of mankind. His body was a ruin of flesh and metal, his armor fused to bone, his face unrecognizable behind the machinery that bound him. Tubes ran like veins from his throne into the floor, feeding the life of an empire. Vader approached and stopped at the foot of the dais. The hum of the golden throne filled the air like the breath of a god. For a moment there was only silence. Then, deep within the void of his mind, a voice spoke. "You have come far, child of another galaxy." Vader's respirator rasped once. "You know who I am. I know what you were," the voice said. And what you still might be." Vader's hand clenched at his side. "Then you know why I am here. To end me." The chamber darkened and the stars themselves seemed to fade. The Emperor's dead eyes glowed faintly in the shadow. "Perhaps," Vader said. The voice trembled through the walls, neither anger nor fear, only exhaustion older than empires. "Then come, Dark Lord, let us see which god survives the night." The throne chamber trembled as the two titans of will regarded one another, one bound in gold, the other encased in black. Between them hung the weight of 10,000 years of faith and silence. The Emperor's psychic presence pressed upon the air, vast and cold, a sea of light choked by its own magnitude. Vader stood unmoved, his respirator hissing in defiance. Around him the force recoiled, resisting the suffocating gravity of that dying god. The Emperor's voice filled the chamber, not as sound but as thought. "I have watched this galaxy rot from within its own devotion. I have felt every scream, every plea that bears my name. You, machine and man, stand before me without kneeling. Why?" Vader's reply was measured, his tone stripped of reverence. "Because kneeling is surrender, and I have spent my life rising from the ashes of it." The faintest flicker of amusement stirred in the Emperor's tone. "You bear the mark of fire and failure. You are shaped by war, ruled by rage. You are no different from my sons." "I am no one's son," Vader said. His voice echoed through the chamber, sharp and final. For a moment the air grew still. Then came a ripple, a distortion, as if reality itself inhaled. The Emperor's psychic form coiled through the warp, brushing against Vader's mind like a storm against glass. Memories flooded unbidden, Mustafa's fire, Padme's dying breath, the hollow echo of Sidious's laughter. Vader staggered but did not fall. The Emperor's voice deepened. "I see your pain, and I see your strength. You are both prison and key. I made my throne to bind chaos. You made your armor to bind yourself. We are mirrors, you and I." Vader's fist clenched, his mechanical hand humming with restrained fury. "A mirror's crack, only truth endures." "Then you seek to destroy me. I seek to end the illusion," Vader said. "You are not life. You are machinery propped upon faith. You keep this galaxy alive only so it can keep you dying." The Emperor's laughter was not a sound but a vibration through the bones of the world. "You misunderstand. I am the wall between humanity and oblivion. Without me, the warp will consume all that breathes. Would you trade eternity for chaos?" Vader took a step forward, the golden light reflecting off his armor. "You call this eternity. You have become the very cage you sought to break." The light around the throne flared, burning brighter, turning white-hot. The psychic wind tore through the hall, hurling relics and fragments of ancient banners into the air. Vader's cape whipped behind him, his footing unwavering. He raised his hand, palm outward, meeting the invisible pressure with his own will. The force and the Emperor's mind collided, two oceans crashing in endless opposition. For a moment all time ceased. Through the veil of power the Emperor's eyes opened. They were no longer blind, but blazing, filled with the memory of conquest and betrayal. "You think yourself strong enough to take my place? You are a shadow of a fallen world." Vader ignited his saber, the red blade a scar against the golden glow. "Then let the shadow meet the sun." He surged forward. "Orbi." The force propelled him faster than thought, his strike arcing toward the Emperor's still form. But the blow stopped inches from its mark. Suspended in midair by an unseen barrier, the air screamed. Vader pushed harder, the energy in his blade vibrating with fury, but the Emperor's hand, skeletal, wrapped in gold, rose slowly, halting the attack with a gesture. The psychic feedback struck like lightning. Vader was hurled backward, his armor sparking as he crashed to the floor. Pain surged through his body, but he used it, channeled it, rose with it. He hurled a wave of power that shattered the marble steps of the dais, sending cracks racing toward the throne. The Emperor did not move. So much rage, the voice murmured. You wield it as weapon and armor, yet it blinds you. I once had a son who believed the same. The name came unbidden to Vader's mind, Horus. For an instant he saw the image. A warrior kneeling before this same light, blade raised in rebellion, consumed by pride and promise. The Emperor had crushed him. I am not your son, Vader said again, slower this time, his voice almost human beneath the mask. And you are not my god. And you are not my god. The force rose around him like a tempest. He struck again, not with his blade, but with his will, gripping the air around the Emperor, the throne, the machinery that bound him. Circuits screamed, tubes burst, the light faltered. For a single breath, the galaxy seemed to dim. The Emperor's voice softened, the echo of eternity fading into something almost mortal. You cannot kill me, Anakin Skywalker. The name froze him where he stood. Even now you carry that wound. You became this to escape what you were, yet it lives within you. That is why the gods cannot touch you. You are incomplete, a ghost trying to become order. Vader's saber trembled in his grip. The force between them pulsed like a dying star. Then finish it, he said, his tone hollow. No, the Emperor replied. Finish it yourself. The light dimmed again. A presence stirred behind Vader, massive, radiant, a golden guardian stepping from the shadows. Captain General Valorous had entered the chamber, spear ready, eyes wide with the terror of what he saw. Am I Emperor? Step back, he shouted. Vader turned slightly, his blade lowering. His blade lowering. The custodian advanced, shining like a god of war. You will not profane this sanctum, Valorous roared and charged. The collision was like thunder. Sparks filled the chamber as blade met halberd, crimson and gold locked in perfect symmetry. Shoo. Every strike rang with the echo of history repeating itself. Around them, the machinery of the throne screamed, and from somewhere deep within the Emperor's dying heart, a faint whisper escaped into the void. The galaxy will break before this duel ends. Neither warrior heard it. The sound of steel and fury drowned all else, and the throne's golden light began, for the first time in 10 millennia, to flicker. The duel raged within the throne chamber, echoing like the heartbeat of a dying star. Each strike from Valoris's halberd was a sermon of precision and purpose. Each parry from Vader's blade was the denial of faith itself. Sparks painted the air in gold and crimson, light clashing against shadow in the sanctified dark. Marble shattered beneath their feet, relics toppled, and the eternal silence of the chamber was drowned beneath the hum of the Force and the ring of divine steel. Vader advanced with relentless power, every motion guided by inevitability. Valorous met him, the strength of the Emperor's chosen burning through every strike, yet his devotion faltered as he glimpsed the truth behind the mask. Vader did not fight for conquest, nor for glory. He fought with a precision devoid of fury, the calm of purpose absolute. It was not the rage of a heretic, but the discipline of inevitability. The halberd swept in a glittering arc. Vader ducked low, twisting with mechanical grace, his saber searing through Valorous' pauldron. The custodian staggered, golden armor hissing as the heat spread through it. But he did not fall. He countered with a blow that would have crushed a tank, the shaft of his weapon slamming against Vader's chest plate. Circuits sparked, breath rasping louder. They locked blades again, faces inches apart. You are not a man, Valorous growled. You are a machine wearing sin. I am what remains when faith fails, Vader answered, pressing forward. The halberds half cracked beneath the pressure of the Force. Valorous fell to one knee, his weapon breaking apart in his hands. The red blade hovered at his throat, humming softly. For a heartbeat, neither moved. You could have killed me long before this, the custodian said. Why hesitate now? Why hesitate now? Vader looked down at him, voice low and almost human beneath the mechanized cadence. Because I have seen loyalty twisted into worship before, and I know its cost. He deactivated his saber. The silence that followed was heavier than battle. Valorous knelt, trembling, not in defeat but revelation. The light of the throne dimmed further, the chamber cloaked in shadows that pulsed with unseen power. Then the Emperor's voice returned, vast and resonant, no longer restrained by machinery or ritual. Enough! The word rolled through the chamber like thunder. Valoris bowed his head, tears of blood streaking down his face beneath the golden helm. Vader turned, his cape torn and scorched, the mask's lenses reflecting the corpse upon the throne. "You have shattered the silence of my vigil," the Emperor said. "The galaxy stirs in terror. Even now, billions cry out in prayer, unsure if their god still lives." Vader's breath filled the space between them. Or perhaps he never did. The psychic air rippled with fury, but beneath it was something deeper, weariness, an exhaustion that had endured millennia. "You think you see truth, you see only decay. The Imperium is rot made manifest, but it endures because I endure. If I fall, all will burn." Vader ascended the steps slowly. The throne loomed above him, its golden frame cracked, wires and tubes snaking into the withered husk it held. "Your empire is already burning. You feed on its ashes." The machinery hissed, 1,000 servos groaning in protest. "You cannot comprehend the burden I bear." "I comprehend it well," Vader said. "I too served a master who called himself Savior. Palpatine." The Emperor's voice trembled through the warp, tasting the name like poison. "He was a spark of the same madness that drives chaos itself. You destroyed him, yet you wear his chains still. I wear only purpose. You wear denial. You believe yourself free, but you are bound by the same will that forged me, the need to control the uncontrollable. You seek to end gods, yet you would take their place." Vader stood at the foot of the throne, his reflection glimmering across the Emperor's lifeless mask of flesh. The cables pulsed faintly with the rhythm of a dying heartbeat. "Then I will free you," he said. "You would kill me. I would release you, Hui." The chamber darkened further, as if the sun itself had been smothered. From the depths of the warp, unseen watchers leaned closer. Demons, gods, the echo of chaos itself. The galaxy held its breath. "If I die, the Astronomicon dies with me," the Emperor warned. "The Imperium will fall into the void. Imperium will fall into the void. You will drown in the same darkness you seek to command." "Then let it drown," Vader said, his voice steady. "The galaxy has lived too long in chains of light and lies." He raised his hand. The machinery trembled. Tubes tore free with a scream of metal. The light of the throne flared one last time, then began to fade. The Emperor's voice became a whisper, stripped of majesty, almost human. "You will condemn them all." "They condemned themselves long ago," Vader replied. The last of the golden glow dimmed, the machinery stuttering into silence. The psychic roar that followed was beyond sound. Millions of psychers across the Imperium screamed as their minds shattered, their link to the Astronomicon severed. Warp storms erupted in the void, devouring ships and worlds alike. Vader stood unmoving as the light around the throne died. The corpse slumped forward, motionless at last. For a moment, the universe itself seemed to stop. The oppressive psychic pressure lifted, replaced by something vast and cold. The force within him stirred, unbound, infinite. Valoris looked up from where he knelt, his eyes wide in horror. "You've doomed us," he whispered. Vader turned, his silhouette framed by the dying embers of golden light. "I have freed you." The air shook as the warp screamed. From every corner of the galaxy came the thunder of collapse, ships torn from reality, demons spilling into mortal worlds, prayers unanswered. Yet amid the chaos, something new began to rise from the ruins. The Noctis engine on Mars ignited, its power synchronizing with the faint rhythm of Vader's breath. Mechanicus shrines flared to life, their machine spirits humming to a new frequency. Across the void, ships guided not by faith but by logic found stability in the storm. The Astronomicon was gone, but a different beacon, darker and colder, began to pulse. Vader turned his gaze back to the throne. The corpse sat still, dust already settling upon it. His voice, when it came, was quiet but absolute. "The age of faith ends, the age of order begins." As he descended the steps, the custodian still knelt, his head bowed in disbelief. "What will you tell them?" Valoris asked. Vader paused. "The truth," he said, "that their god has fallen, and something greater has taken his place." He walked into the darkness, the sound of his breathing echoing through the hollow halls. Outside, terror trembled beneath the shadow of the fleet that now hung above it. The golden world was fading, and in its place rose a new empire, cold, silent, efficient. The Emperor was dead. But the galaxy, in its terror and its hunger, had already begun to whisper a new name. The moment the Emperor's light extinguished, the galaxy screamed. Across the void, the Astronomicon faltered, then shattered into silence. Ships that relied upon its radiance were cast adrift, their navigators blind, their crews swallowed by madness as the warp howled against the hulls of their vessels. The Emperor's death was not a moment. It was an event, a psychic implosion that tore through the veil of reality itself. On distant worlds, saints turned to ash mid-prayer. Cathedrals collapsed as statues of the Emperor wept blood. In the Imperium, the Chaos Gods paused in awe, watching as the golden beacon that had mocked them for 10 millennia flickered out. Upon Terra, the palace was a grave. The golden halls were dark, the great banners still, and the custards stood like statues, their faith fractured. Valoris knelt before the dead throne motionless. Around him, the last echoes of the Emperor's psychic presence bled away, leaving only the cold hum of dying machinery. The air was heavy, charged with power and disbelief. And there, in the center of it all, Darth Vader stood in silence. His breathing filled the chamber, now the only rhythm in a world without a god. The Mechanicus fleets above Mars received the signal first. The pulse that spread through the void was not the psychic light of the Astronomicon, but a coded frequency, mathematical perfection wrapped in mechanical precision. It carried one truth: the Omnissiah lives. The forges of Mars erupted in crimson fire, bellows of steel and plasma lighting the blackened skies. Magos and tech priests screamed binary hymns as the Nocti's engines synchronized with the pulse of Vader's command. All across the galaxy, where the Emperor's name had once been carved into the fabric of faith, new inscriptions were burned. Temples reconfigured into machine chapels, data shrines replacing altars, hymns replaced with logic liturgies. Humanity's gods had fallen, but its will to worship remained. And in that void of belief, the machine god's doctrine took root. On Terra, the first to act were the Inquisition. The ecclesiarch's priests were executed in droves, their churches dismantled as heretical symbols. Those who cried out for the Emperor's resurrection found themselves silenced by Skitarii enforcers whose loyalty was written into their code. The High Lords who survived the psychic collapse gathered in desperation, demanding to know who now ruled. They received their answer in the form of a transmission, cold, direct, absolute. I am the order that follows your god's decay. I am the will of the machine. I am the Imperium reborn. The message carried no signature, but the voice was unmistakable. Darth Vader's, Bider's. But Valoris rose from his knees at last, his golden armor scorched and dull beneath the fading light of the chamber. The throne was silent, its machine spirit gone. He looked up at the figure standing before it, the black silhouette that had brought about the unthinkable. "You have killed the Emperor of mankind," he said, his voice low, trembling between awe and hatred. "You have damned us all." Vader turned, the red lenses of his mask reflecting the broken corpse on the throne. "He was already dead," he replied. "I have only severed the illusion that bound you to his rot. Without him, the warp will consume us." Vader stepped closer, each movement deliberate, precise. "The warp feeds on belief. Chaos is born of worship. You called him God, and so the gods answered. But no longer. There will be no gods now, only order." Valoris stared at him, disbelief etched into every line of his face. "You would replace faith with obedience? You think you can command the warp through logic?" "I will not command it," Vader said. "Futabori, silence it." Outside, thunder rolled across the poisoned skies of Terra. The first ships of the Mechanicus fleet entered low orbit, vast black silhouettes blotting out the sun. Their arrival darkened the world, a second shadow to follow the first. From their holds descended titanic constructs, new legions of the Mechanicus, shaped by Vader's design. Skitarii in black and crimson armor, their optics glowing red like his own, poured into the streets. Their arrival was not met with resistance. There was none left with strength to resist. In the palace below, Valoris stood his ground as the chamber trembled around him. "You will unmake everything," he said. Vader's response was a whisper. "No, I will make it endure." The custodian lunged, his broken halberd in hand, desperation overriding faith. But Vader was already moving. The force erupted, invisible and unstoppable. Valoris was lifted into the air, armor screeching as it crushed inward. His helm cracked, revealing the man beneath, eyes burning not with devotion but grief. "Then you are no savior," he gasped. "You are another tyrant." Vader's voice was cold, unflinching. Perhaps, but tyranny is preferable to chaos." He released his grip. Valoris fell lifeless at the foot of the throne, his blood spreading like a shadow across the marble floor. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Sanctum Imperialis was empty of faith. Only will remained. Far beyond Terra, the eye of Terra pulsed with violent color. The Chaos Gods watched in silence, uncertain. The Astronomicon's death had unbalanced them. Their feeding ground of belief had fractured. Yet the new pulse, the mechanical rhythm that now spread through the void, was something they could neither devour nor ignore. It had no soul, no passion, no prayer, only precision. Korn growled in confusion. Slanesh whispered in anticipation. Tsinkis tilted his head, his 1,000 eyes flickering with curiosity. God of iron, he mused. How wonderfully sterile, wonderfully sterile. And Nurgle laughed, his laughter bubbling like rotten bloom. All things decay, even machines. Let him rule, he will learn our truth soon enough. On Mars, the Fabricator General knelt before a newly constructed effigy. A towering black figure of steel and shadow, a mask of cold, red glass gazing down upon him. The Omnissiah has ascended, the Fabricator intoned. The Golden Throne is no more, the Iron Throne shall reign. The chant spread like contagion, echoing across Vox networks and Forge worlds alike. Across countless systems, new banners rose, not of gold and purity, but of black and crimson. The Imperium's two-headed eagle was reforged into a single eye, ever watching, unblinking. Vader stood before the empty throne one last time, its golden frame dim beneath the cold light of a dying sun. His breathing was steady, mechanical, eternal. Eternal, eternal. Mankind with faith, he murmured. I will bind it with reason. He turned away, and as he walked through the ruined hall, the first sounds of machinery awakening filled the air. The galaxy was burning, but from its ashes a new empire began to rise, one ruled not by gods but by the will of the machine. The Astronomicon was gone, yet still the stars pulsed with a faint, rhythmic light. A new beacon had replaced it, one that bore no warmth, no spirit, only the steady, endless breath of its creator. The death of the Emperor did not end the Imperium, it transformed it. Across the stars a new order rose from the silence that followed the severing of heaven. What began as confusion became doctrine. The ecclesiarchy, stripped of its god, was absorbed into the Mechanicus, its priests reforged into curators of machinery and logic. Their psalms became equations, their relics recalibrated as data cores. Temples were converted into processing cathedrals where the faithful no longer prayed, they synchronized. Terra itself was remade in the image of its new master. The once golden spires of the imperial palace were clad in black iron, their domes crowned with red luminescent symbols, the language of the new creed. Pilgrims still came in their billions, though none spoke of miracles now. They came to serve, to submit themselves to the will of the Iron Throne. The corpse of the Emperor remained upon it, untouched and preserved, but it was no longer an icon of divinity. It was a component of history, a husk displayed as proof of evolution. From the depths of the Mechanicus forges, Vader ruled. His throne was no longer golden, but obsidian and cold, suspended within a cathedral of circuitry and void light. His voice echoed across the Vox networks of the Imperium reborn, commanding not through fear, but inevitability. Each command, each decree was carried by code and pulse, transmitted in perfect clarity. The galaxy obeyed because it could not do otherwise. The faith, he had decreed, is inefficiency of the mind. Belief clouds precision. The machine does not pray, it functions, and so shall mankind. For the first time in 10,000 years, production flowed without stagnation. The forges of Mars burned day and night, their output doubling, tripling. The hive worlds, once choking on their own corruption, became models of ruthless order. Crime ceased, not through law, but through optimization. Dissent became statistically impossible. The Imperium of Man became an empire of machines, its people components of a greater design. But not all bent the knee. In the ruins of the ecclesiastical worlds, scattered remnants of priests and inquisitors hid among the dead cities, whispering of prophecy. They spoke of the Elite Reborn, a legend that claimed the Emperor's soul had not perished but had fled into the warp, awaiting rebirth. In the underhives of Terra itself, a name was spoken in secret, a name forbidden under penalty of erasure. Anakin Skywalker. Anakin Skywalker. They did not know its meaning, only that the machines feared it. Inquisitor Greyfax had survived the fall of Mars, her hatred tempered into purpose. She moved through the void aboard a stolen vessel, hunted yet unbroken. Her mind, disciplined by centuries of faith, resisted the pull of logic that the new regime imposed. She had seen the old Emperor's light, she had felt it, and she knew that what ruled now was no god. It was an absence, a void pretending to be order. She gathered what remained of the Inquisition, Fanatics, heretics, broken psychers, all those who refuse the machine's dominion. From the Eye of Terror to the shattered shrines of Ophelia 7, her message spread. The corpse was never a god, she said, but the man upon the throne, he was. And that man can rise again. A rebellion was not of armies or fleets, it was of faith. They began to rebuild the old cathedrals, forging relics from scavenged steel, painting the emperor's visage upon the walls with ash and blood. The new Imperium called them anomalies. Vader called them errors. He watched their movement unfold across data streams, their progress mapped by probability. A faith is a contagion, he said to the Fabricator General, who stood in reverent silence. We will cure it. The Fabricator bowed. The forges of Mars are prepared. Shall we deploy the iron custards? Eno, Vader said, the mechanical breath between his words colder than any machine. I will deal with them myself. On the world of Gathis Prime, where the ruins of a cathedral city rose like the skeleton of an empire long forgotten, the heretics gathered beneath the burning sky. Thousands knelt before a cracked altar, the last remnant of the emperor's image carved into the stone. They prayed in silence, their words trembling, their hope fragile but defiant. The air changed. The ground quaked. Above them, the heavens split open as a black ship descended. No banners, no heraldry, only a shadow falling across the faithful. The roar of its engines drowned their hymns. When the ramp lowered, the figure that emerged silenced the world. Vader stepped into the ruin, his armor reflecting the crimson fires of the dying sun. His presence was absolute, oppressive, and silent. The heretics fell to their knees, some in fear, others in awe. Greyfax stood at the center of them, her hand upon her pistol, her eyes blazing with unbroken conviction. You have built an empire without soul, she said, her voice carrying over the wind. You have caged the human spirit and called it progress. You have silenced faith, but faith does not die. Vader's mask turned toward her. Her faith is decay. You worship death because you fear truth. But the truth, Greyfax said, is that you killed the only being who could have saved you. I killed a prison, Vader replied, and I became its warden. Her hand moved in a blur, drawing her weapon. A bolt of light tore through the air, but it never struck. Vader's hand rose, halting it mid-flight. The energy hung for an instant before dissolving into nothing. Your defiance is irrelevant, he said. Then why do you fear it? The question lingered soft as dust. For the briefest moment, something flickered behind the mask, an echo of memory, a shadow of the man buried beneath the machine. It was gone as soon as it came. Because it spreads, he said at last, and with a gesture the ground split. The force tore through the ruins, scattering the faithful like leaves in a storm. Greyfax stood alone, defiant even as the air crushed around her. She met his gaze as the world crumbled. He will return, she whispered, and when he does, you will remember what it means to be human. Vader's lightsaber ignited, casting a crimson glow upon the shattered altar. Humanity is weakness, he said, and the blade fell. When the storm ended, nothing remained but ashes. Yet in the ashes, a single spark flickered, a faint glow, like the heartbeat of something waiting to rise again. The ashes of Gathis Prime still hung in the void when the Eye of Terror bled open once more. Warp storms erupted across the stars, streaking the galaxy with rivers of crimson and shadow. The fall of faith had not weakened the powers of chaos, it had enraged them. The death of the Emperor, the silencing of worship, the mechanization of belief, these were wounds upon the Imperium itself. The gods howled and their champion answered. Abaddon the Despoiler, War Master of Chaos, stood upon the bridge of the vengeful spirit, his gaze fixed upon the void where terror burned dimly in the distance. The death of his ancient foe had not brought him triumph, only hunger. He has claimed what was mine, Abaddon growled. They throne stolen from the dead, a galaxy denied to gods. Behind him his sorcerers knelt, their eyes blackened from visions of the new order. The warp recoils from him, one whispered. The machine god of flesh and shadow. He silences the screams of the damned. Abaddon turned, his clawed hand tightening around the pommel of Drachnion, the demon sword that writhed in his grasp. Then we will make him scream instead. The 13th Black Crusade began anew. Fleets of chaos poured from the eye, their ships aflame with demonic sigils, their hulls alive with the wailing of enslaved souls. The galaxy convulsed. Entire systems vanished beneath storms of unreality as the warp spilled into the material. But unlike before, there was no astronomicon to guide the Imperium's defense, only the cold, precise network of the Iron Throne. Vader watched the invasion unfold from the command spire of the Executor Reborn. Holographic projections filled the air, each one detailing a new front of battle. To him, the galaxy's agony was not chaos, it was calculation. Every loss, every victory, every death was part of a greater formula. "The enemy moves with fury, not reason," said the fabricated general, his metallic voice echoing through the chamber. "They are unpredictable." Vader's reply was calm. "Then they are predictable in their chaos." He raised one gloved hand, fingers brushing the surface of the nearest projection. "Mobilize the Dark Mechanicus legions. Deploy the Iron Custards. The galaxy will know order, through annihilation if necessary." Mars obeyed. Entire sectors of space filled with legions of reprogrammed servitors, ships reforged with Vader's technology, and Titans bearing his mark. The armies of the Imperium moved with machine precision, their commands synchronized through a single will. Every world that fell to chaos was burned clean. Every world that resisted Vader's logic was silenced. At first, the balance favored the new regime. The Iron Fleets met Abaddon's armadas with devastating efficiency. The Mechanicus weaponry, refined beyond the limits of human understanding, tore through demon-forged hulls. Planets once thought lost were reclaimed, their skies cleared of warp light. The Imperium Reborn advanced with relentless, merciless order, but the warp adapted. The Chaos Gods, denied their endless feast of worship, began to feed on something new: fear. Entire populations, stripped of faith but still burdened with terror, became offerings. The warp swelled, and from its depths emerged horrors unseen since the days of the Horus Heresy. Titans of bone and shadow, ships powered by the souls of dead gods and demons that bore the faces of those long slain. On the bridge of his flagship, Vader felt the shift. The Force quivered, distorted by something that was not of the Force nor of the warp. A presence, familiar, watching. He turned to the void. "So," he said softly, "they send an echo." From the darkness emerged a fleet not bound to chaos, nor to the Imperium. Its ships bore symbols of the old galaxy, fractured, ancient, yet unmistakable. Star destroyers refitted and armored with technology not of this realm. And at their head a vessel Vader knew too well, the Eclipse, its superless silent but alive. A voice came through the void, mechanical and resonant. "You are not the Empire." Vader's breath hissed once, "And neither are you." The transmission revealed the figure at the helm. An artificial intelligence born from the remnants of Palpatine's own contingency, preserved within machine thought. It regarded Vader with something like disdain. "You betrayed the Emperor. You replaced faith with order. You are the failure that must be erased." The irony was not lost on him. Another empire, another ghost of tyranny risen from its ashes. "Then come," Vader said, "and learn the price of defiance." The two forces collided in the void between stars. The Iron Fleets met the Imperial remnant in a storm of fire and shadow. Chaos descended upon both like vultures. The galaxy became a crucible, faithless, godless, yet burning with purpose. Amid the maelstrom, Vader strode through the wreckage of a conquered world. The air shimmered with the residue of psychic war, reality thin as glass. He reached out through the Force, sensing the warp pressing against the veil. The voice that answered was not of chaos, nor of the Force. It was something older. "You killed a god, yet you cannot kill belief." "Belief is weakness," Vader replied aloud. "No," the voice whispered, echoing from the corpses, from the machines, from the stars themselves. "Belief is creation, and creation cannot be silenced." Vader's gaze lifted to the horizon where the sky burned red. He felt it again, the faint echo, the heartbeat of something he had thought long dead. A presence that did not belong to gods, machines, or monsters. It was human. For the first time in an age, his breath faltered. On the edge of the galaxy, among the ruins of a lost shrine world, a light flickered in the warp. A point of radiance neither divine nor chaotic. It pulsed in rhythm with the heartbeat of the universe itself. And in the silence between those pulses, the galaxy whispered a name it had long forgotten. Skywalker. The whisper of his name haunted the silence between worlds. It spread like a pulse through the void, resonating not through machines or minds, but through something older, buried deep within the galaxy's soul. Vader stood upon the bridge of his flagship as reports flooded in, worlds experiencing anomalies, navigators hearing voices, even the mechanical hearts of Titans faltering as if their machine spirits hesitated. The name carried no power of command, no traceable frequency. It was simply there, echoing across reality, and it had chosen only one listener. "A Skywalker," Vader murmured. The sound of it seemed to bend the air, stirring something within him long thought extinguished. It was not the name of a man, but of a wound, one the machine had never sealed. The fleet around him moved like clockwork, but within the warp's unseen currents, order began to fracture. Storms howled in patterns unnatural even to demons. The barrier between the materium and the immaterium thinned, as if beckoning him to step across. The Fabricator General warned of increasing instability, of the warp reacting to his presence. Reality itself bends toward you, my lord, the mechanized voice reported. You must withdraw. Vader's response was absolute. A no, I will go where it calls. He turned from the viewport, cloak trailing like a shadow of eternity, and descended into the vessel's inner sanctum. There, within a chamber of mirrored steel, the force gathered around him like a storm. His mechanical hand touched the cold surface of the floor, and the air distorted. The line between machine and mind dissolved. With a breath, he stepped into the warp. It was not travel, but transition, falling without movement, burning without heat. The immaterium unfolded around him, an ocean of screaming colors, its depths alive with the echoes of thought. Where others would have been consumed, he walked, the storm parting around him like a tide before inevitability. His presence was not light nor darkness. It was silence, and the warp recoiled from it. The gods felt him enter. Korn's laughter thundered through the endless crimson plains. Slanesh sang a melody of pain and perfection. Nurgle whispered promises of peace eternal, and Tzinch, ever watching, smiled. So he returns, the Changer murmured. The God-slayer who would silence us all. Vader continued his path, unblinking before their taunts. The force here was twisted, raw, without the balance that gave it form in his own realm. Yet beneath the madness, he sensed something else, a heartbeat not of chaos but of memory. It drew him onward until the storm parted, revealing a void of perfect stillness. In that void stood a figure of light. Human in shape, aglow with radiance that neither blinded nor burned. For a moment, Vader did not breathe. Anakin, the voice was calm, familiar. It was his own, unbroken by machinery, untouched by hatred. The younger man stepped forward, eyes clear, face serene. You became what you feared, he said. You sought to destroy the gods and became one. Vader's hand tightened on his saber. You are not real. I am what real. I am what remains of you, the apparition said. The last memory of who you were before the mask, before the empire, before the throne. You buried me, but not completely. Now as the warp reshapes itself, I rise again. Vader ignited his blade, crimson light searing the void. Then I will bury you anew. The younger form raised a blue saber of its own, the hum softer but no less resolute. You cannot kill what you still are. They moved as mirrors, red against blue, machine against man. Each strike was a paradox, each parry a denial. The warp itself bent under their conflict, the gods watching in rapture. To them, this was more than battle. It was creation, destruction, rebirth. The red blade cut arcs through the air, fueled by the weight of endless war. The blue met it with precision born of compassion. Sparks became stars. The void became battlefield and temple alike. You believe order can save the galaxy, the light said, deflecting another strike. But order without hope is simply control. Hope is illusion, Vader replied. The galaxy needs discipline, not dreams. You sound like him. The words struck deeper than any blade. The duel halted for a breath, the two forms locked in silence. The force between them trembled, alive with contradiction. A Palpatine sought to rule the soul of man, the apparition said. You seek to erase it, but neither of you understood. The soul cannot be ruled, it must choose. Vader's grip tightened. A choice brought only ruin. I will remove choice and with it chaos. Then you will destroy what makes existence worth enduring. The words echoed. Vader struck again, faster, harder, driven not by anger but denial. Their blades met in a storm of light. The force around them screamed as it reached its breaking point. Then in the silence between blows, the younger voice whispered, almost gently, "Do you remember Padme?" Vader froze. The name was a wound reopened. For the first time in millennia, the rhythm of his breath faltered. In that hesitation, the blue blade touched his armor, not to wound, but to remind. The world around them began to dissolve, the warp retreating as if unable to contain the paradox any longer. The younger figure stepped closer, lowering his weapon. You killed a god, he said softly. But you cannot kill love. You cannot kill what once made you human. The light faded, leaving Vader alone once more. The warp roared in fury, but he no longer heard it. He stood upon nothing, his saber extinguished, the faint echo of the name still lingering in his mind. Anakin Skywalker. When he returned to the Materium, the stars were burning. The war still raged, fleets clashing like titans in the dark. Yet as Vader emerged from the void, every sensor in the fleet registered an anomaly. The warp storms were receding. The gods were silent. For the first time since the Emperor's death, the galaxy knew stillness. Vader looked to the distant stars and felt something beyond the machine, beyond control, a memory of what once was and what might yet be. He whispered the name once more, not in anger, but in acknowledgement, Anakin. And the galaxy shuddered, as if remembering with him. The silence that followed was unnatural. The warp, once a storm of endless rage and hunger, had gone still. For the first time in the memory of any living soul, the void between stars lay quiet, like the breath held by creation itself. From the command deck of the Executor Reborn, Darth Vader stood watching as his fleets moved in formation across the dark, their engines dimmed, their weapons silent. Every sensor confirmed it. No psychic interference, no demonic presence, no turbulence in the Imperium. The galaxy in its infinite torment had fallen mute. Yet in that silence, something began to stir. It was faint at first, a rhythm distant and impossible, like the heartbeat of a buried god. Vader felt it not with his machines, but with what remained of the man within. It was warmth, fragile but undeniable. The Force whispered through him, not as command or weapon, but as presence. He had felt it once before, long ago beneath twin suns. He turned from the viewport, the faint reflection of his mask flickering in the glass. The battle against the apparition, the echo of Anakin, had left a scar upon his being. The duel had not destroyed him, it had revealed something that neither machine nor power could erase. He had walked into the warp as Lord of Order, and emerged carrying the ghost of humanity he had tried to forget. The Fabricator General's voice broke the stillness, transmitted through Vox. The enemy fleets retreat into the Eye of Terror. Their power wanes. The warp storms collapse. What command shall we execute, my lord? Vader did not answer immediately. The hum of the ship filled the pause, steady, unbroken. When he spoke, his tone was quieter than the mechanical modulation that usually carried it. A stand down the fleets. Halt all advances. The war is over. The Fabricator's response was hesitant, confused. Over? But the traitor legions still, without the warp, they will die, Vader said. Let them vanish with their gods. The Vox went silent. Across the stars, orders rippled through the Iron Legions. War machines went still. Titan stood idle in the smog-choked ruins of conquered worlds. In a single moment, the endless crusade that had devoured millennia ceased. Vader walked alone to the meditation chamber, deep within the ship's heart. The door sealed behind him with a sigh of pressure. The hiss of his rhetor filled the hollow chamber, echoing through the darkness like the voice of a distant ocean. He sat upon the central dais and closed his eyes. The world of metal and command faded, and the Force, no longer divided between light and dark, rose around him like the slow dawn of something forgotten. He reached outward, beyond himself, across the void, to where the warp once screamed. It did not resist, it opened. What he saw was neither the horror of chaos nor the blinding purity of divine light. It was balance, an ocean calm and endless, where every thought, every life, every death flowed as part of a single rhythm. For the first time, the Force and the warp were one, and within that stillness he saw him. The Emperor, no longer bound to the throne, stood before him, not as corpse or god, but as the man he once had been. Golden light radiated softly from his form, gentle, unthreatening. His voice was no longer thunder, but weary calm. "You have done what I could not," he said. "You ended what I began." Vader bowed his head. "You enslaved them in light. I freed them into silence. Yet even silence can become a cage," the Emperor replied. "They will seek gods again. It is in their nature. Then they will learn to exist without them." The Emperor smiled faintly. Or perhaps this too is faith. The words lingered, heavy as prophecy. Vader looked at him, truly looked, and for the first time did not see an enemy. He saw a reflection of his own struggle. Two men who had tried to command eternity and had been consumed by it. "Why appear now?" Vader asked. "Because you have become what neither of us could be," the Emperor said. "Are not ruler nor savior, but balance. The Force no longer divides itself through light and shadow. You have united its halves through will alone." Vader's voice was little more than a whisper. "I did not seek balance, only peace." The Emperor stepped closer, his form flickering at the edges. "Then you have found the same thing by another name." The vision faded like morning mist. Vader opened his eyes to the cold hum of his armor. The ship was silent. Through the viewport above him, the stars glowed faintly, brighter than he remembered. On Terra, the Iron Custard stood vigil over the now empty throne. The golden corpse had crumbled to dust, yet the chamber was filled with light, not from machinery but from the atmosphere itself. The priests of the Mechanicus fell to their knees, their data prayers forgotten as they witnessed something beyond all calculation, a warmth spreading through the air, carrying neither faith nor logic, only presence. Across the galaxy, those who had once prayed to the Emperor and those who had served the machine both felt it, a pulse that was neither divine nor mechanical. The cold order of the Iron Imperium softened. Servitors paused in their endless labor. Psychers wept, though no visions burned their minds. The Force had returned, pure and wordless. Vader stood before the stars and breathed. His mechanical lungs hissed as always, but beneath the sound was something else, a rhythm not of metal, but of life. He understood at last that the galaxy did not need gods or rulers. It needed silence. It needed choice. It needed time to heal. "Let it begin," he said softly, and deactivated the link to the fleet. His image vanished from every world, every machine, every temple. When the galaxy looked again, he was gone. But in the quiet that followed, some swore they still heard the faint sound of breathing, steady, mechanical, eternal, echoing through the stars. And in that sound, they did not hear fear, they heard balance. Centuries passed in silence. The galaxy that had once burned under the weight of its gods settled into a strange stillness, a balance neither divine nor damned. Worlds rebuilt themselves without prayer, guided by the quiet rhythm left behind by the one who had vanished. The Iron Imperium endured, not as a tyranny, nor as a faith, but as a structure of precision that hummed with purpose. Cities gleamed in the dim light of distant suns, their people moving like clockwork beneath skies free from the warp storm. It was peace, but peace of the machine, not the soul. Terra became the heart of this new age. The palace, once the seat of worship, now stood as a fortress of logic, its halls stripped of gold and scripture. Where choirs once sang hymns to the Emperor, now algorithms dictated the pulse of civilization. The Iron Custards remained, their armor dimmed to black and crimson, guardians not of divinity but of order itself. Yet even they, built for obedience, began to question the silence. The human spirit, suppressed but unbroken, stirred once more beneath the weight of reason. In the deepest vaults of Mars, the Fabricator General, the last of his kind, maintained the heart of the new Imperium. The Noctis engine pulsed in endless rhythm, sustaining the network that bound the stars together. Its design was flawless, its operation eternal. And yet, within its perfect pulse, anomalies began to appear. Imperceptible fluctuations, irregular beats like the hesitant thrum of a human heart. He observed the readings in silence. The system fluctuates, his servitors reported, the source unknown. The fabricator's voice, more machine than flesh, rasped through the air. No, not unknown. His ocular implants refocused, and deep within the data stream he saw it. An impossible signature, faint, rhythmic, and familiar. Breathing. Across the void the anomaly spread. Entire data vaults recorded phantom sounds within their circuits. Vox channels carried echoes that could not be traced. In the shadows of the Iron Worlds, those who still remembered the old ways whispered of the Omnissiah's return, of the god who had refused to die. The Mechanicus archives labeled it the anomaly of the 9th cycle. The people gave it another name, the breath between stars. The Fabricator General transmitted an encrypted signal to Terra. "The pulse returns," he said. "The pattern matches the one that once guided us. On the throne world, the Iron Custards assembled in the old Sanctum Imperialis, now stripped bare of its golden finery." The throne still stood but empty, a relic, cold and hollow. The Custards' leader, Valoris' successor, stared at the faint light flickering across the walls as the transmission played. He knew the rhythm instantly. It was not the hum of the machines, nor the resonance of the warp. It was something else, something that reached beyond structure and order. "Summon the fleets," he commanded. "He calls to us." The signal spread across the galaxy, igniting whispers where logic had long reigned. Entire systems fell silent as their networks synchronized to the rhythm. Even those untouched by the machine felt it, a stirring in the chest, an inexplicable awareness of something vast yet intimate. Farmers on distant agri-worlds stopped their work to look skyward. Soldiers paused in their drills. Children born into a world that had forgotten gods pressed their hands to their hearts and asked what the sound was. The answer came from the warp, Where the immaterium had been stilled for centuries, ripples began to form. But this was not chaos reborn. It was creation in its purest form, formless yet ordered, like breath becoming matter. The warp did not scream this time, it sang. Its voice was neither angelic nor demonic but human, and at the center of that song a figure took shape. He emerged slowly, as if drawn from memory rather than matter, dark armor reformed, cloak rippling like shadow and flame. The mask returned, but it no longer hid a man's face. It was the face of the Force itself, sculpted in symmetry, the union of light and dark. The hum of the respirator followed, steady and infinite, as he stepped forward into the material realm once more. Darth Vader had returned, yet he was not as he had been. The rage that once powered him was gone, replaced by something colder, quieter. His presence did not crush or command, it resonated. He was no longer a symbol of oppression nor a god of machines. He was balance incarnate, the living bridge between order and chaos. On Terra, when he appeared within the throne chamber, none dared speak. The iron custards fell to one knee not out of devotion but recognition. They felt it instinctively, the union of man and machine, will and compassion, reason and soul. Vader's gaze swept the empty hall. "You kept the order," he said, his voice deeper than the storm, yet softer than memory. The captain of the custards looked up. "We did as you commanded, my lord. The galaxy is silent, and yet you called me back," Vader said. The custards hesitated. Because silence is not peace. Vader stood before the throne, his reflection cast upon its cold surface. "No," he said at last. "It is not." He turned to them, the faint rhythm of his breath filling the chamber like the pulse of creation itself. "Then we will teach them again, not to worship nor to obey, but to remember." The Fabricator General's transmission came through once more, the data fracturing under the weight of the signal. "My lord," the voice trembled, static filling its edges. "What are you?" The answer came not in words, but through the force that rippled outward, touching every mind and machine in the Imperium reborn. "I am both." The stars brightened. The warp sang louder. Across the galaxy, machines flickered to life, their circuits glowing with warmth. Humanity, long buried beneath iron and obedience, awoke. The machine god had remembered its soul, and the soul its machine. And somewhere in the heart of that union, in the rhythm of the galaxy's new dawn, the sound of his breathing continued, steady, eternal, and alive. The galaxy had changed again. The reawakening spread not through conquest or decree, but through resonance. Every world, every star, every machine hummed to the rhythm of that steady, eternal breath. It was the sound of unity reborn, of balance between what was once called soul and what was once called steel. Yet within that quiet harmony, a tension began to grow, subtle, patient, like the intake of breath before the first word of creation. Vader's return had not been announced. It did not need to be. His presence alone reshaped the psychic foundation of reality. From the throne world to the outermost colonies, people awoke from dreamless logic and began to feel. Not devotion, not fear, but memory, the echo of humanity that had been buried beneath the march of machines. The Force, once a whisper drowned in static, surged again through the galaxy, diffused and balanced. For the first time since the fall of the Emperor, it belonged not to gods or warriors, but to all living things. Vader stood at the heart of Terra's sanctum once more, before the empty golden throne. The iron walls pulsed faintly with light as the machinery attuned itself to his presence. Custards remained nearby, watching as he interfaced with the throne's dying systems. Energy coursed through the conduits and the air filled with a low hum, the merging of ancient power with the will of something new. He looked upon the skeletal remains that had once ruled mankind. "You built an empire from faith," he said softly, his voice calm but resonant, "and I reforged it with reason. But neither faith nor logic was ever enough. The galaxy endures only when both coexist." He placed his gloved hand upon the armrest of the throne. The machine responded instantly, awakening like a slumbering god. Sparks of golden light cascaded across the room as data streams connected to every sector of the Imperium reborn. His breath deepened, the rhythm aligned with the pulsing core of the planet itself. In orbit, Mechanicus vessels felt the surge ripple through their systems. Servitors collapsed in reverence as their logic cores overloaded. On distant worlds, dormant relics of the old Imperium flickered to life, their machine spirits awakening after centuries of silence. But this was not subjugation, it was communion. The Iron Imperium was no longer ruled by command but by resonance, each part harmonizing with the other. Vader's vision stretched far beyond terror. Through the Force he saw the vast lattice of civilization that had once teetered between worship and despair. Now it pulsed with potential. He could feel every thought, every spark of life, a symphony of minds, all connected, all free. And yet he also felt the weight of what it meant to sustain such balance. To unite the galaxy was one thing. To preserve it without falling into tyranny was another. He withdrew his hand, breaking the link. The lights dimmed, the hum fading into silence. The custard's captain stepped forward. "My lord, the galaxy obeys. There is peace across the sectors. No war, no rebellion. Even the warp itself has calmed. What remains for us now?" Vader turned, his silhouette illuminated by the faint glow of the dying throne. "To ensure peace does not become stagnation," he said. "To ensure that logic does not consume life again. You will guard them, not as soldiers but as witnesses. Let the galaxy remember what came before, so it may never return to it." The custards bowed their heads. "And you, Lord?" Vader looked to the stars beyond the shattered dome, his respirator exhaling softly. "I will go where the light cannot. There are still remnants of the warp that linger, shadows of what was. They must learn balance as we have." He left Terra in silence, his ship cutting through the void like a shard of shadow. No escorts, no banners, no proclamation. He was not the ruler of mankind now, he was its guardian, its balance. The Executor Reborn carried him beyond the galactic core, toward the remnants of the Eye of Terror, where the last storms of chaos churned like dying embers. As he approached, the warp's surface rippled with recognition. The demons that once clawed at reality now watched in uneasy silence. When he stepped through the veil, they did not scream, they bowed. The Force moved through him like a current through an ocean, cleansing the corruption that lingered. He did not fight the warp, he embraced it. Chaos, stripped of purpose, dissolved into harmony. For the first time since the dawn of man, the warp and the material universe existed in equilibrium. Millennia passed, though none could measure time anymore. The galaxy thrived under the balance he had forged. Wars ceased to have meaning. Empires no longer sought dominion but understanding. The remnants of the Mechanicus evolved into something new, the Order of Resonance, devotees of unity rather than faith, engineers of both machine and soul. The Force became a science, yet it retained its mystery, uniting logic and belief into one living truth. Still, legends persisted. Travelers spoke of a figure who walked between stars, appearing on worlds at the brink of ruin. They said he came without fleet or army, his arrival marked only by silence, and that wherever he passed storms calmed, machinery healed, and life began anew. None saw his face, for he wore the mask of the ages, black as the void, gleaming like memory. Some called him the machine god. Others whispered a name older than empires. On a small world orbiting a dying sun, a child once looked to the sky and heard it, the faint sound of breathing carried on the wind. When she told her elders, they smiled sadly. "That is the breath between stars," they said. The sound of balance keeping the universe awake. And though no monument marked his passing, no shrine bore his likeness, the galaxy itself became his memorial. Every world that turned, every machine that hummed, every living heart that beat in time with the stars carried a fragment of him. He had not ascended, nor fallen. He had simply become what he was always meant to be, neither God nor man, neither light nor shadow. The will that had once destroyed and rebuilt the galaxy now sustained it in silence. In the endless night his breath continued, slow, steady, eternal, the sound of life remembering itself.